Dear learners, I would like to welcome you all to this lecture on gain from trade, which is included in Module 5 of our course on international economics. In the previous four modules, we have discussed the basic concepts of international trade and some of the basic and modern theories of international trade. Now, in this lecture, we will try to explain what are the gain from trade achieved by different countries, whether it is developed countries who involve in international trade. So let me start with introduction. International trade, whether between developed, developing, or underdeveloped countries, plays a pivotal role in economic growth and development. Now, this argument that trade is beneficial is rooted in the understanding that nations, by engaging in trade, can unlock mutual benefit that contributes to their prosperity. Now, economists around the globe, they agree that a closed economy or one that practices autarky or no trade is inherently limited in its capacity to achieve economic growth and development. So that is why, with the help of trade, countries can access goods and services they do not produce themselves and thereby expanding their consumption possibilities and fostering economic efficiency. Now, to explain the gain from trade, we have to explain the basics ideas regarding gain from trade. The core of the gain from trade concept lies in the notion that trade allows countries to specialize in the production of goods in which they have a comparative advantage. So, as a result, this specialization leads to more efficient production. It is more production at a less amount of inputs, higher output, and ultimately greater welfare for the countries involved. However, it is important to note that the distribution of this gain can vary across countries. This is obvious because countries which are more in advantageous position, there is a possibility that they can access more benefit from trade as compared to countries who are placed at a disadvantageous position. So let me explain how it is. So as a result, what happened? Larger industrialized nation or those with a comparative advantage in manufacturing are often able to capture a larger share of gain, whereas countries primarily engaged in the production of primary commodities may experience lesser benefits as compared to those countries who specialize in production of industrialized commodities. So thus, trade is generally beneficial. Although it is beneficial, the distribution of gain may be unequal, because in that case what happened, the industrialized countries, by specializing on those goods who have a favorable terms of trade in international trade, they can gain more benefit as compared to countries who specialize in production of primary commodities. So that is why it is believed that although trade is generally beneficial for all, the distribution of gain may be unequal. So that is why, to understand why the distribution of gain is unequal for countries involved and how all the countries achieve some amount of gain from international trade, we have to discuss the analytical framework. Now, the analytical framework for understanding the gain from trade has evolved over time with contribution from classical and modern economics. Modern economics like Adam Smith and David Ricardo introduce foundational theories, as we have already discussed in our previous module, on the benefits of trade. So Adam Smith theory of absolute advantage and Ricardo theory of comparative advantage laid the groundwork for understanding why trade is advantageous even when one country is less efficient in producing all goods. So based on those foundational theories, later economists such as J.S. Mill refined these ideas further, considering factors like transport cost and trade barriers. Now, If you consider the modern economic theory which explain gain from trade, we have to explain that those theories have built on this classical concept, analyzing the gain from trade not only in terms of comparative advantage but also through more nuanced frameworks such as offer curve, production possibility curve, and community indifference curve. So these are the tools they have used to aid with the classical theories so that they can better explain the dynamism of gain from trade. So these modern models help to illustrate how countries can maximize welfare through trade, considering both exchange of goods and gain from specialization. So furthermore, modern economics differentiate between gain from exchange rate, gain from specialization, highlighting how uh, both elements contribute to overall welfare improvement of trading nations. Ultimately, despite the variation in how gains from trade are distributed, the prevailing consensus is that trade enhances the welfare of trading countries. So there is no doubt among the economists regarding uh, the notion that although the benefits of trade are distributed unequally, but at the same time it is also true that trade enhances the welfare of all the trading countries. So as a result, the interaction between comparative advantage, specialization, and exchange enable countries to reach a higher standard of living than that would be possible in isolation. So that is why all the countries also, although they know that the involvement of trade gives them a unequal benefit to all the countries, but in spite of that, they they are willing to participate in international trade. So, as such, international trade serves as a catalyst for economic growth and global interdependence, fostering a more interconnected and prosperous world. Now, after discussing why nations engage in trade and how they can achieve some kind of gain from trade, next we are going to discuss the approaches to the gain from trade. So there are different approaches which explains how countries gain from trade. Also, what is the process of achieving some kind of gain from trade? The concept of gain from trade has been a central focus of economic thought since classical times, as I have already explained, with various eminent economists offering distinct approaches. So, in this part, we will try to provide a brief overview of few classical approaches to understanding the benefit of international trade or the gains from international trade. Now, whenever we try to discuss any kind of theories or any kind of approach related to international trade, such as gain from trade, we cannot ignore the Adam Smith approach, which is basically considered to be the first scientific explanation of gain from trade. Adam Smith's theory of international trade is grounded in the principle of division of labor and specialization, which he identifies as a key driver of improvement of productivity. So, according to Smith, trade allows nations to export goods that have lower demand domestically while importing goods that are in higher demand. So, this exchange maximizes national welfare by optimizing resource allocation. So, according to Adam Smith, specialization in the production of goods with cost advantages allows countries to allocate their resource more efficiently, resulting in enhanced productivity. So, furthermore, the expansion of specialization and the division of labor burdens the market for goods, thereby maximizing both welfare and export earnings for trading nations. Now, uh, after discussing the Adam Smith approach, we need to discuss the David Ricardo approach, which explains that even if two countries may not have an absolute advantage of producing two commodities, in spite of that, they can involve in trade and they can achieve some kind of gain from trade, which is basically explained by David Ricardo. Now, David Ricardo approach to international trade rooted in the theory of comparative advantage, which we have already, extensively explained in our previous lectures, which basically, it refines the idea of gain from trade. So, according to Ricardo, trade is beneficial for all participating nations if they specialize in production of goods for which they have a comparative cost advantage. So this implies that each country should focus on producing goods in which it has a lower relative opportunity cost compared to other nations and trade those goods with others. So these are basic principles of David Ricardo approach to international trade. So Ricardo theory, as a result, Ricardo theory suggests that countries will export goods in which they have a comparative advantage and import goods in which they have a comparative disadvantage, which we have extensively explained in our previous lectures. So by doing so what countries can do, they can, the resources are used more efficiently in that process, and total income of all the nations engaged in trade is greater than it would if they attempted to produce everything domestically. This is obvious. So in Ricardo's words, the mutual advantage from trade is not derived from an increase in value, but from the ability of both nations to enjoy an increased quantity of goods with the same amount of value. So in essence, what we can say from the Ricardian perspective, international trade allows countries to consume more goods than they would if they produce everything themselves. Now, after discussing the Adam Smith and Ricardo basic explanation regarding the gain from trade, we are in a position to explain how J.S. Mill explained the gain from trade, or we can say the approach adopted by the economics J.S. Mill to explain the notion or the concept of gain from trade. The J.S. Mill theory of gain from trade presented through his reciprocal demand theory, which basically sought to address a key criticism of the David Ricardo classical model. While Ricardo theory of comparative advantage explained that trade benefit could arise when countries specialize in goods for which they had a lower opportunity cost, it did not fully explain how gain from trade were distributed between trading countries. So Mill contribution focused on the distribution of these gains, which he argued was determined by terms of trade. The terms of trade, I think all of you know the terms of trade refer to the ratio at which one country can exchange its export for import. So more specifically, the terms of trade is the rate at which a country exports are traded for certain quantity of input. So what J.S. Mill argued that the reciprocal demand between two countries, how much one country is willing to trade for another goods, determine these terms of trade. Now, in this Mill's framework for explaining the distribution of gain from trade, it depends on the elasticity of the demand for each country's goods in the other country. So how he can explain? He explained that the whole approach with the help of offer curve. So the offer curve is a central concept in this analysis. In this lecture, we will not explain in detail regarding the offer curve. We are trying to explain how offer curve helps to explain the Mill's framework regarding gain from trade. A offer curve shows the quantities of a good that a country is willing to offer for a given quantity of the other country's goods, depending on the terms of trade. So by examining the offer curve of both countries, Mill illustrated how equilibrium terms of trade are determined and how gain from trade are shared between them. Now, to visualize this concept, we can imagine two countries, say country A and country B. Each country is willing to exchange a certain amount of goods, say agricultural product or industrial goods, for the other countries. The position and the shape of the offer curve for each country depends on the reciprocal demand for the goods in each country's market. So as a result, the point at which this offer curve intersects determine the equilibrium price and terms of trade. So once terms of trade are established, the amount of goods that each country receives from trade and thus their respective gain is automatically determined. So that is why Mill's theory offers a more comprehensive understanding of the trade by highlighting that the gain from trade are not fixed but rather depend on the negotiation between trading countries and the mutual demand for each other goods. Thus, the theory helps to, or this approach helps to explain how countries can both benefit from trade, but the size of the benefit is determined by how much each is willing to offer and accept in exchange. Now, uh, another important explanation or approach to gain from trade is provided by uh, the famous economics F.W. Taussig. Now, Taussig presented a distinct approach to understanding the gain from trade, emphasizing the expansion of income as a key benefit. So, unlike the earlier theories, as we have already explained, the theory of absolute advantage by Adam Smith, the theory of comparative advantage by David Ricardo, uh, and the theory already explained by J.S. Mill. The Taussig approach focused primarily on the efficiency and specialization. So as a result, Taussig analysis linked international trade to a rise in income and a corresponding increase in the standard of living within a country. Now, according to Taussig, when a country engages in trade, the export industry typically expands. The expansion, as a result of this expansion, demands additional labor to meet the increased production requirement for export goods, obviously. So as the demand for labor rises, employers in the export industry begin offering higher wages to attract workers. So as a result, this process of higher wages spills over into other sectors of the economy as employers in non-export industries must raise wages to compete for the labor supply. So, so as a result, the wage increase is an essential component of Taussig's theory as it reflects a broader increase in money income across the economy. As wages rises, household experience an increase in the purchasing power. So this leads to greater consumption of both domestically produced and imported goods, which in turn results in a higher overall welfare for the country. So thus, the country not only benefit from the efficiency gains of specialization and trade, but also from income growth that arise due to increased employment and higher wages. So that is why Taussig approach is considered to be an improvement over the previous approaches. So in essence, Taussig's theory suggests that the gain from trade is not merely an increase in the volume of goods produced or consumed, but is also manifested in the expansion of income throughout the economy. So as incomes rise, so too does the ability of citizens to purchase more goods both from domestic producers and international market. So as a result, this boost in overall economic welfare represents the real benefit of trade, which is basically explained by Taussig. Now, what are the modern approaches of gain from trade along with Taussig? So, in the context of modern economic theory, they have acknowledged that both trading countries benefit from trade when it is based on principle of comparative advantage. The modern approach expands on this by decomposing the overall gain from trade into two distinct categories: gain from exchange and gain from specialization. So, what is gain from exchange? Gain from exchange, this refers to the improvement in the terms of trade. That is the ratio at which one country can exchange its export for import. So, as countries trade based on their comparative advantages, the price at which goods are exchanged often improve, leading to greater satisfaction for consumers in both countries. The ability to trade at favorable terms of trade allows consumers to enjoy a wide variety of goods at better prices, thus increasing their overall welfare. Now, what is gain from specialization? So, this category emphasizes the benefit derived from greater specialization of resources. So, what happens when countries focus on producing goods and services in which they have a comparative advantage, they can utilize their economic resources more efficiently. So, this leads to a higher total output, improving overall productivity and ensuring that resources are used in the most productive way possible. So, greater specialization results in more efficient production, allowing both countries to enjoy an increased supply of goods and services. So, thus, under the modern approach, trade not only raises the level of satisfaction for the consumers through improved exchange rate, but also enhances overall economic welfare through specialization, ultimately leading to a higher standard of living in both trading countries. So, after discussing the different approaches of gain from trade, now we are in a position to explain what are the factors determining gain from trade. One of the most important factors determining the gain from trade for countries involved in trade is the differences in cost ratio. Basically, what happens? International trade occurs when there are differences in the cost ratio of the producing goods between two countries. So, in other words, the gain from trade depends on the comparative cost differences between two countries. If country A has a comparative advantage in producing commodity X, while country B has a comparative advantage in producing commodity Y, both the countries will benefit from trade. So, the volume of this gain, however, depends on the extent of the cost differences between the two countries. So, let me give a simple example. For example, if the cost of producing commodity X in country A decreases, then country B will benefit more from trade. Similarly, if cost of producing commodity Y in country B decreases, country A will experience a larger gain. The greater the differences in comparative cost ratio between the two countries, the larger the potential gain from trade for both the countries. The second important factor determining the gain from trade is the reciprocal demand. It basically depends on terms of trade. As we have already explained, the terms of trade is the rate at which one country goods are exchanged for another country goods. Now, these terms of trade are determined by reciprocal demand. So, reciprocal demand, it basically refers to the relative strength and elasticity of demand for one country goods in the other country. So in international trade, each country will demand goods from the other based on relative needs for those goods. For instance, for example, a country A may specialize in the production of commodity X and country and demand commodity Y from country B. Similarly, country B on the other hand may specialize in the production of commodity Y and demand commodity X from country A. So thus the demand for commodity X in country B and for commodity Y in country A constitute reciprocal demand. So the strength of this demand determines the terms of trade and how the gains from trade are divided. So that is why what happened, we are considering two possibilities. The first possibility is that country A may specialize in the production of commodity X and demand commodity Y from country B. And the second one is that country B may specialize in the production of commodity Y and demand commodity X from country A, and thus the demand for commodity X in country B and for commodity Y in country A constitute reciprocal demand. If a country demand for other countries' goods is inelastic, for our time we are assuming that, it means that even a significant change in the price of other countries' goods will not greatly reduce the amount it demands. For example, if country A has a highly inelastic demand for commodity Y from country B, then country B can increase the price of commodity Y via terms of trade without losing much demand from country A. So in that case, what will happen? Country B will benefit more from trade as the terms of trade will shift in its favor. Now, the opposite is the situation. If a country's demand for the other country's goods is elastic. So as a result, what happens? Even a small change in the price of good will lead to a larger change in the quantity demanded. If country A has a elastic demand for commodity Y from country B, then country B cannot increase the price of commodity Y too much without reducing the quantity demanded by country A, because the demand for that particular commodity in country A is highly elastic. So this makes country A better position in the trade and terms of trade will shift in favor of country A. Another important factor determining the gain from trade is the income level. A country's income level plays an important role in determining the gain from trade. If a country experiences a steady demand for its exports in foreign market, it will enjoy higher money income. The growth of export industries increases labor demand, leading to a higher wages in these sectors. This wage increase generally spills over into the other industries due to competition for labor, resulting in a rise in overall money income within a country. So additionally, what happens? If the price of imported goods is lower, the people of this country benefit from consuming cheaper foreign goods. However, the countries with higher demand for import may face lower domestic income and higher prices, leading to reduced welfare from trade. So along with the three factors as we have already discussed, terms of trade also considered as a determining factor for gain from trade. The terms of trade, the definition of terms of trade I have already explained. It's the rate at which one country exchanges its export for the import it receives. The terms of trade are critical in determining the gain from trade, as both J.S. Mill theory and modern theory highlighted the importance which I have already explained. So when trade occurs, the terms of trade often differ from the domestic terms of trade, which are the internal ratio of exchange within a country. So changes in the terms of trade during international trade can either increase or decrease the benefit a country gain from trading. So that is why it is also considered as another determining factor for gain from trade. So along with the factors we have already explained, there are some other factors. For example, nature of exported commodities. The type of goods a country's export can affect the terms of trade. Generally, what happens? Countries that export primary commodities often face unfavorable terms of trade compared to countries that export manufactured goods, which tend to gain more from trade. Another example is the technological advancement, which is considered to be an important factor. So, countries with advanced technologies and abundant capital often gain from trade. Such countries can produce goods more efficiently, leading to greater export and higher gain from international trade. Productive efficiency is also considered as a important factor which determine gain from trade. The efficiency with which a country can produce goods also affect the gain from trade. More efficient countries or can specialize in producing goods at lower cost, maximizing their potential benefit from trade. Size of the economy is also considered as an important factor because the size of the economy can influence the gain from trade. Larger countries may benefit from economics of scale and a more diverse production base, which can lead to greater efficiency in trade and higher welfare gain. So, what we can say regarding the factors affecting gain from trade, the magnitude of gain from trade is influenced by various factors such as differences in comparative cost, reciprocal demand, income level, terms of trade, the nature of export, technological advancement, and size and efficiency of the country's economy. So these elements together determine how benefit from international trade are distributed and extent to which countries can improve their overall economic welfare. So thus, in conclusion, we can say that the concept of gain from trade highlights the mutual benefit that countries can derive from engaging in international trade driven by differences in comparative advantage. So through trade, with the help of trade, countries can specialize in the production of goods where they have a lower opportunity cost, leading to more efficient resource utilization and an increase in overall welfare. The distribution of these gains is influenced by factors such as reciprocal demand, terms of trade, income levels, and elasticity of demand for traded goods. So ultimately, what happens? Trade allows countries to access a greater variety of goods at better prices, enhancing both consumer satisfaction and economic growth. So thank you for attending this